Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the editor. So I'm going to give you a full tour of the editor features and what all the buttons do, and we're just going to dive on in. So I just have some placeholder text here just so that we have something in the main editor. If you have something blank, it looks more like this, but we've got this here. So we're just going to stop. We're going to start at the top and move our way down. So here is the header, which is pretty self-explanatory. This is your main library. This is your author profiles. These are your settings. This is your theme selector. So you can go ahead and change your themes there. We're going to leave it to coffee time right now. And we are now going to come down here. So this is the first button, hide sidebar, which I know, huge shock, hides the sidebar. To get it back, you just click it again and your sidebar is back. This is also resizable, so you can make it larger or you can make it smaller as you would like. And then we're going to move over here. So this is your saved indicator. If I make a change like that, it says unsaved changes. There is an autosave. It's about every, I think, like 30 seconds. Sometimes it's faster though. Honestly, I need to double check because it should be 30 seconds, but it saves very quickly, which is not a bad thing. And then here we have our AI model settings. So if I click on this, it brings up my AI model settings. It is going to, by default, show you your favorites first. So these are all my favorites that I have saved. It also shows them in these little buttons. This shows outlining because that is a custom tag that I have for Gemini. And if you actually hover, it will show Google Gemini 2.5. And then these are the little lips show that it's a not safe for work model. The star is a general favorites, and this is a little dialogue tag. If I want to do a search, say I would really like to use Kimmy. Well, Kimmy is no models found. If I switch to all instead of favorites, now there's Kimmy. Okay, so and we can switch to one of the free Kimmy models or one of the paid Kimmy models. And if we go back to favorites again, it'll say no because there is no Kimmy in our favorites. So you can do a full search of all of the 300 plus models this way. And then if we come back down here, we have temperature, which is going to be default 0.7 or 0.8. And then you have your max output tokens. 4,000 is going to get you most places. If you're doing a lot of brainstorming or like your full outlines, you might want to crank it up to 8. I almost never use the 16 or 32. Most of the models don't really output very well at that max token. I have seen it do it for chapter outlines. If you're doing chapter by chapter with scenes, sometimes it can reach into these vicinities. It's still not typical for most models. And 8,000 is pretty good sweet spot. The one where you might get into 16 or 32,000 for your max output tokens would be if you're doing a reasoning model. So maybe you have like one of the thinking models for Claude, that could definitely get in there because you're basically doubling your output tokens because of those thinking tokens. But 4,000 and 8,000 are my normal. Okay, so actually let's go ahead and actually select one of the Kimmy frees. So we'll go there and we'll save settings. Now there's a little caret right next to this little arrow. These are your favorite models so that you can just swap the model, but the max tokens and the temperature will stay the same. So if I select ChatGPT 5, it will change here. And if I come here, it'll show me I have one of my favorite models. Temperature and max output tokens did not change. It is just changing that model. Okay. And I'm actually going to go all, and I'm going to, and this is another thing, you can just do a search for free in all, and it will show you free models. Okay, so this just changes the models, doesn't change any of the other settings. If you want to change the other settings, you click in here. This is export manuscript to docx, and I want to talk about this really quickly. So if I am over here, say I'm on the dossier, and I hit this, which we'll go into this in a second with the file types, but this is a new chapter. Chapter 9 is not in the manuscript folder. Okay, so chapter 9, if I put text in here, is not going to export because the export is chapter file types only inside of the manuscript folder. So you see I have ideas in manuscripts. This ideas file will also not export because it is not a chapter file type. And you can see the chapter file type is this little document icon here versus this is a light bulb, which is the ideas. I did this to make sure that when you're exporting, say for to do formatting, because right now Polly does not have her formatting, not yet. She is going to be very shortly. This makes sure that it outputs a clean file for you to be able to take to a formatting. So for the formatting, it has this chapter 1. So the title of your chapter is an H1. You can put H2s and H3s into your file like I did here. This is an H3 and this is an H2. But otherwise, it is not going to have an H1. The only H1 is going to be the chapter. And that's because if you took it into Vellum, and I believe Atticus is the same way, the H1s are going to be where it figures out where the breaks are for the chapters when you take it into another software. And you don't want your ideas or like your prompts showing up in that export if you're taking it to a formatting. So that's why it's set up that way. But if I grab him, chapter 9, and I should be able to see that, should be right there. And now it's in the manuscript folder. So now chapter 9 would export in the manuscript. Okay. So I just wanted to go over that really quickly. Now next we have toggle focus mode, which hides the top bar. So if you wanted a full focus, you could do the hide the nav bar and then hide sidebar, and then you would just be in a writing mode. So that's really nice. Grab that. This is split view, and split view can also be used in focus mode. So to use split view, it's going to give you this extra pane. You're going to click into that pane and you're going to click one of your other files. Now in split view, really quickly, AI features only work in the left pane. So this pane over here. So if you are clicked into this and you wanted to use AI in this file, you would need to open that file in the left pane. It's only going to, AI features are only going to work in the left pane. I did this to avoid complications with focus on the generations and just to keep it clean. AI doesn't love not knowing where it's supposed to go. So this is just to avoid errors. And generally speaking, in split view, your right pane would be a more read-only file anyway. It would be your notes or your outlines, etc. And this could be a really great way right now to have your outline over here and then your chapter over here, and you could copy that in and then delete it if it's already in your outline. That's going to be changing once we add the outline view. But for right now, this is a really great way to have your notes in the other side. And this is also resizable. So if you see here, there's a bar here in the middle, and I can resize these panes. So I can make this one really tiny and just have my notes here on the side. To get out of split view, you're just going to click this button again, and now you're in single mode. And then this is a manual save button. Also, if you type in something here and you're fast enough, you can also do Control or Command S, and that will also do a save inside if you're inside your editor area. Okay, so now coming down into our editor toolbar, this is undo, this is redo, and you can also see if you hover, this is Control or Command Z, this is Control or Command Y. Here we have our headers next, so this is H2, so if I come here, it will show H2 under the dropdown. I can switch this to H3 or switch it back to H2. You can go and bold, so if I highlight this section here and bold, that is now bold. You obviously have italics, underline, and strike through. The strike through is there because it's a really nice option for your editors to say, hey, maybe we want to remove this. And then we also have, I'm just going to create some new lines here so that we can show you the lists. We have bulleted. And if we go here, that's a bulleted list. If we come here and hit list numbered, then we get a numbered list. These lists and formatting all does transfer into the export as well. And then we have a quote. So you can do a scene break or you can do a quote. So there's the quote. And if we just grab here and I want a scene break, there's your scene break. And then this button is find and replace. So we are going to grab Lorem. Nothing has shown. That's because we have to click the little search icon. And now this will highlight. So this is a yellow highlight, and I did not think about this not doing well in all colors. So we are probably going to be changing that in upcoming. Let me see if I can we'll switch to forest green. There we go. Ooh, that is blinding after coming from a dark mode. Okay. So this is it will highlight all instances. It'll tell you how many instances there are. And if I wanted to switch this with find, just because I'm not very creative at the moment, we can replace all. It will replace all instances, and that is no longer available. You can also have the case sensitive. So let's do Ipsum. Search again, case and point. So if any of these were capitalized, so let's just, and we search again. That one is excluded because it's case sensitive, and this is all lowercase. So you can move this also. If you're on a tablet, you can use this little grabby bar. These little dots will help you move around, and then you can hit X to X out of that. Next up is your prompt doc. Prompt doc is where all of your single prompts are. We're going to be doing some more videos on sequences, but this is where all of your single one-off prompts live, is in your prompt doc. This is also something that you can grab and remove. And then this little toggle in the bottom right corner is to resize the window. I'm actually going to switch this back to coffee time. I love dark mode, so you'll notice that there's probably going to be more dark mode than light mode. I will try to help my light mode folks out, but I do prefer dark mode when I'm working. So this does the resize. I'm going to go over the header here for AI prompts. So this one creates a new prompt. It's the same create new prompt that you will see in the back end settings, but you can create new prompts here on the fly. Same exact as the back end. And now we have two modes for our prompt doc. We have classic mode, which means it previews first. So I will show you that by having, these are all words before. So I always like to have, if I have words before, I always like adding an extra new line, just because it's easier for me to see where my thoughts start and stop versus the AI. So I always like to do that. And then stop, if I click the prompt, it takes me to this window. It shows me that there is one variable and there's a green check mark that it is ready to go. That means that words before are found in the document. And this shows the raw prompt. This is what the prompt is without having the variable words before resolved. If I go to resolve, this shows me what the actual words before is, and then the rest of the prompt. Okay, and then if I hit execute, it would run the prompt, which would be nonsense because this is lorem ipsum, so we're not going to do that. If I go back to prompts, this is the classic mode. So you'd always have two steps in order to run any prompt. You would click the prompt, you would look to make sure that that is what you want, and then you would go execute. If you switch over here to this play button, these are immediate runs. So this is called the quick mode. It's one click. So if I click this, it runs. So wherever my cursor is, that is going to be where it generates, and it's just going to generate. These are just one-click buttons. So this is more similar to what you probably are used to if you're coming from Plot Drive or Raptor Write with their new buttons. So these just immediately run, no preview. This just minimizes so that you just have this little header. So maybe you don't want this in your way while you do some editing, but then you want it back, and now you have it back. And then the X, of course, closes it out. Next, we have sequences. This is your sequence doc, very similar to your prompt doc, except now we have sequences. So you'll see that this has 2 steps, this has 4 steps. So sequences are a series of prompts that are usually run back to back or are run in rapid succession in a shuffle pattern, if you will. I'm trying to think of like how to put that, but something like a writer's room, if you're familiar with a writer's room prompt, you would have multiple personas. So that could be a really good idea for a human in loop sequence so that you can bounce around with those personas really easily. And I'll be doing a whole video on that. So you can also see here, we have, actually, I'm going to bring back the prompt doc really quick. These are the categories, so this just helps you narrow down your categories. And you have the same thing here, so you have favorites, there are no favorites. There is this one in 10-step and then this one in brainstorm. We go to all, it shows all. So there are 2 different types of sequences. There's human in the loop, which has this little blue icon, and then there's the robot, which is the autoplay. If I click here, you will see these are play buttons. So I can go through and I can hit play on any of these. And I know that this is a brainstorm snowflake. So I would just go through each of these, iterating and correcting things as I go. Again, there's going to be a whole video on this, but this is human in the loop, which means if I press play on this, it will generate. It'll ask me if I would like to approve or reject the generation, just like if I was running a regular single prompt. And then I can make edits, I can alter things, and then when I'm ready, I click play on step 2. So these are just a really nice way of keeping it really clean and knowing that this is a workflow that I use regularly. So you might have an editing workflow that this would be really great for. You might have a writing or a drafting setup that this would be great for. For me, definitely the Snowflake with Brainstorm. I use the Snowflake method, a rough version of the Snowflake method, for doing all of my brainstorming, all of my outlining, all of that, and it's all very iterative. And so this would make it a really easy process to go through those 8-ish steps back to back. If I click X, it goes back to this main window. If I click Test Brainstorm, this is an autoplay. So there are not play buttons on each step. Instead, it shows me that these are the steps. It runs 1 and 2. And if I click autoplay, it is going to go through and it's going to go through the 10 high concept pitches. It's going to generate. It is going to auto approve the generation. And then it's going to play concept refine, which is the second step. It is going to generate that. It is going to auto approve that. And then it will say it is complete. So if I hit play, it will say executing while it's going through those steps. And then when it's done, and you can go through and edit at that point. The sequences are per document. So if I hit this autoplay mode and say that this was a drafting sequence, it's not going to go from chapter 1 to chapter 2 to chapter 3 to chapter 4, etc. It's only going to do chapter 1. And then if you wanted chapter 2, you'd click into chapter 2 and play the sequence in chapter 2. I don't really love sequences that go beyond one chapter at a time. I have done a ton of testing with NAN and other auto sequences, and honestly, you just lose quality really quickly. And so I found that really having the human in the loop editing between chapters is just really the best way forward. And it's also, Paging Polly is designed for writers that want AI to help them in the process, not completely replace the process. If you want your entire drafting process replaced, there's other tools for that. Okay, so we're going to close out of that. And now we are in our sidebar, which again can be hidden or shown here. You are going to have folders, you are going to have files. So folders can be turned on. So the toggle, this toggles all of them on. This toggles all of them off. That refresh in between is a bug that we are working on fixing. That wasn't doing it and now it's doing it again. So that will be fixed in upcoming versions, but it takes a quick second for it to refresh in between states. So that is how you can toggle on or off all files inside. The toggle is an active document. So if I have this on, this is a active document. So if I come back to my prompt doc and I switch to classic, and let me see general. Let's see if I have okay, so go. So this is active docs and words before. If there are no active docs, it will just be words before on this, by the way. And I don't have words before because I didn't click in. Now I do. And so this shows that the ideas is the entire words before. And then the words, or the entire words before, the entirety of the active document. And then the rest is words before. And if we scroll down here. Oh, interesting. That's another thing that just disappeared. Hold on. I'm going to add a quick note to myself. It should be showing you the tokens. We went through a lot of changes with the prompts and the prompt doc and the sequence doc, adding in sequences. So evidently that got lost in the shuffle, but that will be coming back as well, where it will show you the approximate tokens that you're going to be sending through on active documents and words before. And this is another way to see that the words before is right here. And the active documents is that ideas file. Okay, so if you have this toggled on, little white dot to the right, that is an active document. Any prompt that has the active docs variable will be pulling any and all active documents. So if I did have the entire manuscript folder turned on, the entire manuscript folder will be active documents. That will be context for that entire prompt. So up here, this is add new folder. We add new folder. Now we have folder 1. If I want to rename him, we click the right 3 dots and hit rename. And now I can name this whatever. Name. Hit enter and you now have a new folder. You can drag files into the folder. You'll see it highlight. It will take a second and then it's now in here. Same thing if you wanted to add something to trash. If I drag it over onto trash, we now have 2 items in the trash. Here we are. If we want to revert, we just hit restore and that will go back. If we had the red X, that deletes permanently. And now our trash is empty. Also, there is a empty all. So and you can also move these to trash by the 3 dots. So now if I hit empty trash, any and all documents in here will be emptied. So that is the folders and the files. If you hit the plus button, that is a chapter and we'll add to the bottom. So again, if I want to add that in here, boom. The chapters will auto name. So because, is this chapter 9? Yeah, there we go. It will auto name from the last chapter, which is just a really nice feature in my opinion, so that you don't have to name these manually, where it's just saying chapter and then you have to fill out each of these individually. It does the same thing with all file types. So you see this as note 1. If I add another note, it will be note 2. So if I come here, note 2. So the 3 dots up here, these are the additional file types. So we have note, outline, dossier, which will soon be called source book, by the way, story Bible, world build, ideas, and characters. We will be adding genre and style, I believe is probably going to be what it's called, or general style, I'm not sure, to these file types. These file types are going to come real in handy as the outline view comes into the next iterations of Paging Polly Alpha. Is we're going to have an outline view, and that outline view is going to parse to the individual chapters. And what that's going to mean is that in a chapter, we will have the chapter name, we'll have this. There's going to be a context doc at the top. That context doc is going to have your notes and your general outline for that chapter stored in it. It will be accessible via the prompts, by the prompt variables, and you'll be able to call that in, but that will allow you to have a really clean chapter. I know for my workflow, I would have, let's say this is the outline and the scene by scene, etc., etc. So this would all be my outline, and then I would use that outline to help me draft. And then I would remove this outline and I would Control or Command X, and then I'd Control or Command V into an outline file so that I would have them saved. And it was just a lot of copying and pasting. And so this is going to remove the necessity for that. Similarly with the dossier file that again is going to start being called sourcebook. Sourcebook is now going to be an area where you can do your entire brainstorm. So probably one of your sequences, you do your entire brainstorm and then it will parse to the individual file types. So each of the characters will have its own character file type. Each of the outline pieces will go into the outline, and then it will be figured out from there from the outline view. And similar for genre and style, particular genre notes. So depending on the genre, it might change with, like if you had a cozy mystery, you might have red herrings and things like that, that would be genre specific. And then you would have a style and tone guide for, you know, what POV is this and all of that. But instead of having to fill out individual tiny little boxes, kind of like the Novel Crafter Codex, you're going to be able to fill out everything, have a full conversation with AI in the source book, and then have it broken into these individual pieces that you can then use as context as you move forward with drafting and editing your book. Okay, so that concludes the editor preview and the full tour. Really quick, I don't know if I covered, but this is word counts. These numbers that are showing, these are actual word counts. And if you come into here, those word counts are also at the bottom here. It is sometimes one or two words off from this one to this one. It's just because of how it's calculating words with the lorem ipsum usually. And that is it. Hopefully you have enjoyed this and you are ready to get into writing and hop to one of those tutorials next. We'll see you in the next one.